Let's get more reaction now from the suspended ANC member, Niehaus, someone who has been on the side of the former President Jacob Zuma for the longest time. Mr. Niehaus, thank you very much for your time. Let's get your reaction on this latest court decision around the medical parole that was granted to the former president.
Let us get our facts right first. I'm no longer suspended. My suspension has lapsed. So I'm talking to you this afternoon as a full member of the African National Congress, and as you see, I'm sitting here with an ANC golf shirt on. So I'm speaking as someone within the African National Congress, and I believe that I talk on behalf of many, many other ANC members who are outraged by this decision of the Gauteng High Court. We are outraged because in the first instance, President Zuma was illegally imprisoned without a proper trial. There was then a very careful process of eventually, despite the fact that he should not have been in prison at all, for him to get medical parole because of his health. And those health records, we know there were various attempts to try and compromise them, to compromise President Zuma's own privacy with regards to his health records. And really, if I have to sit and listen to AfriForum telling me that they are doctors and they can decide how serious the condition of President Zuma is, after the commissioner of that time, Commissioner Arthur Fraser, had carefully considered the medical evidence that was available and decided to grant President Jacob Zuma medical parole and return him at least to a limited freedom, not full freedom. Remember, he continued to be under medical parole.
Yeah.
Although, as I've emphasized right at the beginning, he should never have been in prison. What we saw from the Gauteng High Court is further prejudice, is further indication of our legal system and our courts being captured. It is an outrage, this decision, and it is an outrage to justice, and it is a continuation of the persecution of President Jacob Zuma that we have seen now for over 2 decades.
We are going to talk about your claim that the courts of this country are captured. But let's focus on the facts. Arthur Fraser released the former president on medical parole, sidestepping a report of the Medical Parole Board. These are people whose job it is to basically determine whether someone is a recipient of medical parole or someone qualifies for medical parole, and they were very clear that the former president does not qualify for this. So that element is clear. Do you not at least concede that?
I'm not sure that that element is clear. I'm sure that that issue will still be aired in court and in terms of appeals further, because there's also a very clear indication in terms of the act that governs correctional services and also the conduct of the Commissioner of Correctional Services, that the Commissioner had the right and in fact the duty, and in fact he was in a position to be able to make that decision regardless of what the decision of the Medical Parole Board was. Now,
do you think, let me ask you this question then. Let me ask you this question. No, before you move on.
I want to finish my sentence.
But you interrupted me, Mr. Niehaus, and I didn't have a problem.
My sentence is, Polly,
yes.
My point is, and I want to make it and I will make it,
yes,
that the Commissioner had the right to do so, and that the legal process of looking at this will proceed, and therefore you cannot jump to the conclusion at this stage that this is the end of the route or that this judgment by the Gauteng High Court, in fact, is correct. It will be appealed.
Would it be your expectation then, we're still confining the conversation around the actions of the former Correctional Services Commissioner, would it be your expectation for the Minister, Ronald Lamola, to defend his then Commissioner's decision?
Well, I would expect that Minister Lamola will act within the process of the law and will also be a minister that defends the senior civil servants that worked under him. In this instance, I said worked because Commissioner Fraser, of course, now his term has expired. But I believe the minister has a responsibility to defend his former commissioner and to defend the decisions that the former commissioner had taken, and therefore that the minister himself and the government needs to appeal this particular ruling.
If he doesn't?
Well, obviously, then it will be a further indication of the manner in which President Zuma gets persecuted. It will raise serious questions about the objectivity of the minister and his government, and it will raise further serious questions about the manner in which our legal system is being used and abused for factional political purposes.
Mr. Niehaus, let's conclude our conversation. Yesterday, the courts or should I say the judiciary of the country was releasing its performance report. And of course, that comes with almost an assessment, if you like, of the state of our judiciary. And they have been very clear, the acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, that over the last 25 years, the judiciary, I think his words were that it has gone through many storms, is the word he used, or the characterization he used. And perhaps one of those is that the judiciary has been on the receiving end of claims such as the one that you make now, attacks, add to that, which you have not been able to prove. Why do you say that the courts of this country are captured? What evidence can you put forth?
Well, you will forgive me, Collie, for first of all smiling when I hear that this report was presented by the acting Chief Justice, Justice Zondo, because we all know the role that Justice Zondo is playing within the Commission of Inquiry into state capture. We also know the manner in which he himself had been involved in the treatment of President Zuma. We've seen the way in which he made himself both a judge and a material witness in the commission when there was a request from President Zuma that he had to recuse himself, etc., etc. Now, you know, a thief cannot come and judge on himself on whether he is a thief. In this instance, I find it quite amusing, if it wasn't as serious as it is, that our judicial system think they can judge themselves under the circumstances of the evidence that there is of the manner in which President Zuma had been treated, the manner in which Comrade Ace Magashule had been treated, the manner in which even myself had been treated, the absence of equality of justice for all, the manner in which certain people like Mr. Oscar Mabuyani are left off the hook, while others are being charged immediately with trumped-up charges, such as the so-called oversight charge that Comrade Ace Magashule is faced with, while others are being arrested in front of TV cameras while they are doing interviews, with police receiving instructions from senior cabinet ministers that they must immediately arrest that person, and so forth and so forth. Now, I can hear you becoming uncomfortable when I give this list.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Because what is happening, Mr. Niehaus, no, I'm not. Can I tell you, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable. What I am, though, is I'm getting impatient because you're not giving me anything that is factual. That proves that the courts of the country are captured. It's simply that.
You're becoming impatient because you do not want to accept that the arrest of Comrade Ace Magashule and the charges against him on the basis of a so-called witness that was there and now no longer is there, the manner in which President Zuma was treated by the Constitutional Court, the very prejudiced manner in which the Deputy Chief Justice treated President Zuma in the Zondo Commission, and so forth and so forth. The manner in which we had seen the charges being brought against Mr. Bongani Bongo, and then eventually is not found guilty, and the consequences of all those actions on people's political careers. while other people, and I gave you examples.
Well, Bongani Bongo, if Bongani Bongo can be found not guilty, why would you say that the courts are captured? If Bongani Bongo is found not guilty, whose decision was that? Is that not a decision of this country's court?
Of course, it was a decision by Judge Shorpe.
And so that judge is not...
No, can I finish what I'm trying to say? Because you want to enter with me into a debating society and you are an interviewer. Now, I'm saying to you that Mr. Justice Shorpe dealt with a case where he ruled that the evidence was so flimsy that there was absolutely no case against Mr. Bongani Bongo. And that case, you can clearly see, was a trumped-up case with political purposes, and the political purposes was to remove him as a political player within the African National Congress because there was a faction that couldn't tolerate the views that he expressed. And it is the same thing that has happened to Comrade Ace Magashule and many others. And the worst example of this, and the vindictiveness and the way in which people are being persecuted, is President Jacob Zuma, who had to undergo this kind of vindictiveness for more than 22 years now.
All right. Niehaus, thank you very much for your time.
And thanks for having given me a chance to speak now rather than debating with me.
Niehaus, thank you very much for your time. He says he is now a fully fledged member of the African National Congress, not suspended anymore. Hopefully the ANC will give us clarity on that.